Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Welcome to this Bhagavad Gita class, where we are going to study from chapter 2, text 41. Here online we have Lakshmi Priya, Jonathan, Kim, Anasuya, and here in person there's Laura, Eze, and Mother Malini. And I am Damayanti Devi Dasi, happy to give this class. So we will do the Sanskrit one word at a time, and then we'll go through the verse, the whole verse. Okay. Vyavasayatmika. Would anyone like to reply online? Or we've got Laura here in a moment. So we're on text 41 in chapter 2. Buddhi. Eka. Iha. Kurunandana. Bahushaka. Hi. Ananta. Cha. Buddhaya. Avyavasayanim. Vyavasayatmika buddhir. Ekeha kurunandana. Bahushaka hyantascha. Buddhayo vyavasayinam. Vyavasayatmika buddhir. Ekeha kurunandana. Bahushaka hyantascha. Buddhayo vyavasayinam. Vyavasayatmika buddhir. Ekeha kurunandana. Bahushaka hyantascha. Buddhayo vyavasayinam.
Vyavasayatmika buddhir. Ekeha
kurunandana.
Bahushaka
hyantascha.
Buddhayo vyavasayinam.
Vyavasayatmika buddhir. Ekeha kurunandana. Bahushaka hyantascha. Buddhayo vyavasayinam.
Vyavasayatmika buddhir.
Ekeha kurunandana.
Bahushaka
hyantascha.
Buddhayo vyavasayinam.
Vyavasayatmika buddhir.
Vyavasayatmika buddhir.
Ekeha kurunandana.
Ekeha Gurunandana
Bahusakhayanantascha
Bahusakhayanantascha
Buddhayo Vyavasayanam.
Buddhayo Vyavasayinam.
Anyone else online like to recite the verse? We're doing Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text 41. Okay, so now let's go to the word for word. Vyavasayatmika,
Vyavasayatmika.
resolute Krishna consciousness.
Resolute Krishna consciousness.
Buddhi,
Buddhi.
intelligence.
Intelligence.
Eka,
Eka.
only one.
Only one.
Iha,
Iha.
in this world.
In this world.
Kurunandana,
Gurunandana.
O beloved child of the Kurus.
O beloved child of the Kuru.
Bahushaka,
Bahushaka.
various branches.
Various branches.
He,
He.
indeed.
Indeed.
Ananta,
Ananta.
unlimited.
Unlimited.
Cha,
Cha.
also.
Also.
Buddhaya,
Buddhaya.
intelligence.
Intelligence.
Avyavasayanam,
Adyavasayinam.
of those who are not in Krishna consciousness.
Of those who are not in Krishna consciousness.
Translation: those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. A strong faith in Krishna consciousness that one should be elevated to the highest perfection of life is called Vyavasayatmika, intelligence. The Caitanya Charitamrita states, Shraddha Sabde Vishvasa Kahe Sudrida Nishaya Krishna Bhakti Kaile Sarva Karma Krita Haya. Faith means unflinching trust in something sublime. When one is engaged in the duties of Krishna consciousness, he need not act in relationship to the material world with obligations to family traditions, humanity, or nationality. Fruitive activities are the engagements of one's reactions from past good and bad deeds. When one is awake in Krishna consciousness, he need no longer endeavor for good results in his activities. When one is situated in Krishna consciousness, all activities are on the absolute plane, for they are no longer subject to dualities like good and bad. The highest perfection of Krishna consciousness is renunciation of the material conception of life. This state is automatically achieved by progressive Krishna consciousness. The resolute purpose of a person in Krishna consciousness is based on knowledge. Vasudeva sarvam iti sa mahatma sudurlabha, by which one comes to know perfectly that Vasudeva or Krishna is the root of all manifested causes. As water on the root of a tree is automatically distributed to the leaves and branches in Krishna consciousness, one can render the highest service to everyone, namely self, family, society, country, humanity, etc. If Krishna is satisfied by one's actions, then everyone will be satisfied. Service in Krishna consciousness is, however, best practiced under the able guidance of a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Krishna, who knows the nature of the student and who can guide him to act in Krishna consciousness. As such, to be well versed in Krishna consciousness, one has to act firmly and obey the representative of Krishna, and one should accept the instruction of the bona fide spiritual master as one's mission in life. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur instructs us in his famous prayers for the spiritual master as follows. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado, yasya prasada nagati kutopi, yayan stuvam stasya yashastri sanyam, Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vindam. By satisfaction of the spiritual master, the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes satisfied. And by not satisfying the spiritual master, there is no chance of being promoted to the plane of Krishna consciousness. I should therefore meditate and pray for his mercy 3 times a day and offer my respectful obeisances unto him, my spiritual master. The whole process, however, depends on perfect knowledge of the soul beyond the conception of the body, not theoretically, but practically, when there is no longer chance for sense gratification manifested in fruitive activities. One who is not firmly fixed in mind is diverted by various types of fruitive acts. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Caitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Andeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyashta Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So chapter 2, text 41 reads, those who are on this path are resolute in purpose and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. Hare Krishna. Welcome to this class where I'm going to share some realizations and something from Prabhupada, something about Krishna consciousness, and I hope that it's supportive and beneficial to you all. Yeah, yay. So I've been studying this verse and purport and different references yesterday and today. I just became available and decided to do this class Sunday. So I only had a few days to prepare. Anyway, I really wanted to understand where Srila Prabhupada went in the verse and how it connects to where he went with the purport and how it connects to the verse. And I found it interesting because I found him go to the same places, and I'm logging into my laptop here where I have some notes. I was like, I don't know, like other verses that I looked up were like confirming and deepening things for me personally and what he said in the verse. I'll just start there with what I'm talking about, because in the purport, something that jumped out at me initially, and I have comments I can say about many things, but one thing that jumped out at me that felt a little fun for me is he says, when one is engaged in the duties of Krishna consciousness, he need not act in relationship to the material world with obligations to family traditions, humanity, or nationality. I felt that to be freeing, like I'm not obligated. I'm not obligated to do anything besides Krishna consciousness. That's how I took it. And it felt really liberating because, one of the things that there's many things, sense gratification and illusion and different conditioning and things that can take me away from Krishna consciousness. But one thing, just in my spirit and in my internal, where I put my attention is, I often put my attention on my family, what they're thinking and feeling and how they're doing, and feeling so obligated and feeling so responsible for everybody. So just like a way of being where I feel obligated to tune in to everybody. How's everybody doing? And what's everyone thinking? Is everything okay? And it was this is like a perfect little sentence for me for this week, because I went on a Bhakti yoga retreat here at Mother Malini's home, and I just returned from it Sunday evening. And my intention the last 3 days of my practice and my experiment is to solve problems with Krishna consciousness, even day-to-day stuff, family stuff, like how's everybody feeling and thinking and doing and all of that stuff. For me to be Krishna conscious, like doing direct Krishna conscious things, kirtan, or just creating goals or plans or things, like thinking of service and how can we somehow bring Prabhupada into this conversation or Krishna into the conversation. Like I want to try being more Krishna conscious in daily life. And it feels fun to me. And I've sometimes just like ignore a problem and go do something Krishna conscious, like not feeling obligated, and instead just doing something Krishna conscious on my own. I'm getting applause from Malini. And that's been fun too, to just turn away from whatever's going on and be like, I'm doing something Krishna conscious. So that was really fun. And I looked up, because, I was like meditating on the verse, those who are on this path are resolute in purpose and their aim is one. And I was searching for other places where Srila Prabhupada used the word resolute, and I thought of the word determination. I searched for the word determination. And in a verse that I found with the word determination in it, I thought it was related. It mentioned as well family obligations. So I was like, oh, this is interesting. And you can hear why in this purport. So this is Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 15. I'm just going to read from the purport, a part of it. So Prabhupada says, anyone who is steady in his determination for the advanced stage of spiritual realization can equally tolerate the onslaughts of distress and happiness, and can equally tolerate the onslaughts of distress and happiness, is certainly a person eligible for liberation. And throughout the purport, I'm just going to grab a couple sentences. He says the difficulties usually arise from having to sever family relationships. Sever is a strong word. He's speaking in the previous sentence about people who are like very serious. They adopt the sannyas order of life, which is like completely like renouncing a lot of things. It's like becoming a very serious monk or nun. And without going into that, I'm taking this sentence, difficulties usually arise with family relationships. This is like how I'm taking it. And then later he describes two examples in which aren't necessarily about, yes, it is severing. So Arjuna needed to discharge his duties in the battle of Kurukshetra, which included fighting people on the other side of the battle who were his family members. And that was difficult for him to follow the instruction of Krishna to battle, to go to battle anyway, and to kill family members, which obviously that's extreme, that to think of outright killing a family member. But in that time, in that circumstance, it was appropriate without going into that whole circumstance. But here's another example is Lord Caitanya. He did take sannyas initiation, or he left family life. He had a wife and a mother that he was taking care of, and even though he was very young, he was 24, and they were his dependents, but that was the right thing for him to do, which was to sever family relationships. And so I'm not severing family relationships, and that's not what's being promoted for people that are married with children and everything. It's just internally severing a sense of obligation and attachment that I'm taking from this. So it's just one thing that jumped out from the verse that helped me, like, yeah, I'm like a priority here. My well-being and my Krishna consciousness is a priority, and not so much like, being a slave after everybody. So, whatever could be coming up for everyone in my family. So I thought to share that. And in general, so this verse is like, where does it, okay, so this verse is about those who are on the path of self-realization are resolute in purpose. If they're on the path, then they're not wavering from the path. They're not on different little like side paths that they could be going on. They're resolute and they're going in the one, the aim is one. And the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many branched. So they're going this way and they're trying out different paths, and not necessarily spiritual paths, but just things that could divert them and distract them or us. And I was attracted to this verse. I like the purport a lot. And I don't know, it jumped out at me. I was thinking about my mind and wanting to stay focused on Krishna consciousness and not be diverted. And I remembered this verse and I found it. And so I thought I'd read it and study it. And so where Srila Prabhupada like goes is he talks about faith initially, and then he talks about knowledge and knowledge coming from the spiritual master. And at the end, he says the whole process depends on perfect knowledge of the soul beyond the conception of the body. And so, okay, let me tell you what I have got some notes over here. So I really like these teachings. I really love this one thing that I'll read to you. It outlines the like journey of the soul, like the natural phases when you're on this path, when you're like a sincere seeker and you are searching out the true like meaning of life and who you really are and who God really is, and you have like that really intense sincerity, and it's a co-creation when God or Krishna puts us on the path, and how that all unfolds. It's a co-creation with God, but we play a huge part in it by being sincere and ready and just like open to receive the spiritual knowledge. And so there's like a little arch of like from the beginning to like what the end looks like, the end being like pure ecstatic love of God, like genuine love of God. And so I'll read this quote from Sri Caitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 23. This is like verse 14 and 15. In the beginning, there must be faith. Then, okay, this is short. This is like a quick summary of it. So in the beginning, there must be faith. Then one becomes interested in associating with pure devotees. And I'll explain, I'll like kind of go into this a little bit in a minute, but thereafter one is initiated by the spiritual master and executes the regulative principles under his orders. Thus one is freed from all unwanted habits and becomes firmly fixed in devotional service. Thereafter one develops taste and attachment. This is the way of sadhana bhakti, the execution of devotional service according to the regulative principles. Gradually emotions intensify, and finally there is an awakening of love. This is the gradual development of love of Godhead for the devotee interested in Krishna consciousness. So I really like that being laid out, and it gives the reason why I'm saying how much I like it is because it's logical. And I'm experiencing it. So like there's logic to it, I'm experiencing it, and authority is saying it. And so it's just very satisfying for me. Like I'm just like, yes, so the way that, so I'm gonna go into it. So we have like I'll say like for me, like it was time to develop a relationship with God. Like the time had come, like I need spiritual life, like, and I knew that. And I guess I'll go into this story a little bit, but I realized that I needed spiritual life, and intense circumstances led me to get to the Sapatov Advanced Seminar. And by the end of that seminar, I was like thinking about God, like by the end, not the whole time, but just at the end after it. And I was surrounded by people who believed in God and like devotees, I was surrounded by them, and they were all just like giving me like 100% attention. And I was like touched, and Mother Malini was there, and something she said made me cry, and then I kept crying. And anyway, it was like touching, the idea of having a relationship with God. And due to the special qualities of devotees, no matter what path they're on, it doesn't have to be Krishna consciousness or like Bhakti yoga. I mean, or, Bhakti yoga is just a term for devotional service to God. So that can be anywhere. That's just the Sanskrit term for that. But, it can be on other paths, bona fide paths, where you see people who are genuinely devoted to God. It's very touching. And, when we come across the devotees in any path, and you're ready to receive, or should be curious and learn more, like, what does this person have? Like, it's very attractive, the qualities of the devotees. And that was my experience. And then I started to, well, if there is a God, I should, if there is God, that would be a shame for me to not explore this relationship this whole lifetime. And here it is, all these people believing in God, and there's these people are special, and they're talking about God, and it sounds really touching, like devotional, it's like very touching, so I gave myself to the experience. So I had a little faith. Like, there's logic to some of the philosophy, and I'm going to go and show up and like see what they're talking about, like coming to these Krishna conscious programs. And I'm going to like check it out and give myself to the experience. And like, dear Govinda Prabhu, David Wolf, he suggested this chanting on these with the mantra. And I was like, okay, I don't have another process that's being presented to me. So I like this. So like, okay, I'll try it. It wasn't very comfortable the first time I chanted one round by myself, and I just felt so uncomfortable. But I thought I should try it. I mean, if people are like having this experience, like the experiences I was hearing about God, then I thought, if that's true for me, then I need to give it a real good effort to explore. So I did that. And I got a little faith. And then what it says here, then one becomes interested in associating with pure devotees. So this is interesting, because then you're like, then it's like, well, who are they learning from? And then who are these people learning this from that I started to get a little faith and a little association from? And then you find out, like, okay, here's the spiritual master, and here's all the teachings, and here's this available knowledge. And then, so this happened for me. I became interested in the pure devotee, who I experienced to be Srila Prabhupada, not the only one, but one that was in front of me, and I really liked what he had to say. And okay, then thereafter, I don't know how soon after, but one is initiated by the spiritual master, and initiation means beginning to be given the transcendental knowledge. So it seems like these things all kind of overlapped: a little faith, a little association, a little interest, a little initiation, a little knowledge, And then I started practicing, executing the regulative principles under his orders. Okay, and I also experienced an official initiation ceremony in 2020, in August of 2020, maybe a year and a half ago or so. And next is you're becoming freed of unwanted habits and becoming firmly fixed in devotional service. And so, yeah, for me, soon after this initiation event, I had unwanted habits before, but they all became really, really apparent and like magnified after. Like for 2021 was a very like challenging year for me. Yeah, I was challenged with unwanted habits, not just like gross sense gratification, but also mental, emotional habits. And so I feel okay about how I handled that, although I'm not judging it, but it was like, I think I did some things that were not ideal. I did some unfavorable things, like unfavorable things during that time, but I'm grateful to have learned from it. And anyway, coming up next, we may see that I have not all the way at the next level, but Oh, okay, developing it, huh?
Nishta.
I don't know the Sanskrit words.
Steadiness.
Okay, it doesn't say the word steady here, but yeah, so it's Mother Malini saying steadiness is up and coming next. That'd be great. That's exactly what that'd be great. But here it says taste and attachment, and this is the way of sadhana. Bhakti sadhana is practice, right? Yeah, so it's like steady. I have a taste, I'm attached, and I'm steady. Like that is coming. I mean, I have a little bit of that. Taste and attachment. Steadiness is not so strong, but hey, I have practice steadiness. I have phases, with the chanting and everything. So, and then soon emotions intensify. Sometimes my emotions have intensified even lately, and I feel like this awakening of love thing, but it only comes and goes, not like so strong. But and then there's this total love of Godhead, and it becomes like really genuine and spontaneous and like eternal. So I'm not that close to that, but anyway. The reason I brought that up is because I don't know why I brought it up, but it was related. Because Srila Prabhupada spoke about faith. This is like okay. So when we're resolute in purpose and we have this one aim, we have faith in what we're doing. We might not know like everything that's coming, and we might not have 100% conviction, but at least we have faith and we're staying on that course, and it's based on knowledge, it's based on intelligence. Like I'm discerning my choice here, and this is what's logical, this is what's making sense, this is what the spiritual master says to do. And later in the report, Srila Prabhupada speaks about the spiritual master, which I love how he does it, so philosophically, not really talking about himself, even though he's meets all the qualifications of a spiritual master. He doesn't often speak about himself as one, although he over time allowed himself to be treated as like, as a someone that could be worshipped and praised and prayed to, and but he has a humble way of presenting himself. As you could see that from videos and stories. And so anyway, this is just philosophy here, where he says that service in Krishna consciousness is, however, best practiced under the able guidance of a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Krishna. And so he guides. So the spiritual master is the bona fide spiritual master is like is sent by Krishna and as part of a chain of teachers, usually in a religion. And that's actually, I don't know if it's usually or every time bona fide. Anyway, I can't speak about the other religions, but what I want to say is that there's a mission given to the spiritual master to transmit and clarify transcendental knowledge according to time, place, and circumstance. And it's a co-creation between the spiritual master and Krishna, and they are in connection when they're co-creating with the students who are coming, and the timing and the way things unfold. I mean, Krishna is a part of it. He's sanctioning what's happening, and the spiritual master is fully in touch with Krishna. And I mean, he has all the transcendental knowledge. Of course, he might express it and share it according to the time and circumstances who he's with and how he says it, and but in Srila Prabhupada's case, he gave an extensive amount of teachings to us. There's like really a lot of instructions, there's lectures and books, and there's a lot of literature, and it's really not like confusing what he's telling us to do. He often repeats himself like over and over again, and to make sure that we get it really clearly. And yes, there may be some times where there's like apparent contradictions, but if you stay with those questions and if we ask people who are more advanced on the path than us, then they can sometimes clarify things that may be confusing or rubbing us the wrong way or triggering us or seeming contradictory. We can get that clarity, but for the most part, it's really clear what Srila Prabhupada is suggesting that we do, like what the instructions are. There are some regulations, and there's a practice, and then you can extend it further. One of the main practices is in Bhakti Yoga and Krishna consciousness, is chanting the Hare Krishna Maha mantra. So that's a mantra we can chant on with beads, or we can sing it, or just say it anytime, and this will like purify our consciousness. And hold on a moment. So chanting Hare Krishna is a really like wonderful way. And the idea is, to chant the names of God. It's a very accessible thing that we can do. Chanting the names of God, any bona fide name of God. We can take that with us wherever we go. It's accessible and doable. And according to Srila Prabhupada and our line teachers, it's like there's many other processes that are difficult in this age that we're in, where things are degraded. And I don't even know what I'm about to say, you guys. I can't talk about this, but anyway, what I mean is, like, I feel a little incompetent. I don't know where I'm going, and I'm saying things that I didn't prepare for this class, so I don't really know where it's happening right now. So I feel a little shy and a little like just shy. So okay, I have a verse about the spiritual master. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadikshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. So this is from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text 34. And it says, just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. To me, it just makes complete logical sense to approach a spiritual master. I mean, every other life area and all the different topics that we can learn from, there's experts, and it's logical to approach them. And spiritual life isn't just, it doesn't make sense to me that it's just this big unknown. I mean, if we're like so conscious and so able, like we have the facility to ask questions, and anyway, I'm just thinking, like, I don't buy into the idea that, oh, well, you never can know. Although I have in the past, I was raised like, oh, well, you never can know what the truth is. You never really know what will happen after we die or why we're here. Yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, what makes more sense to me is that for people who are ready, there is access points to the absolute truth. And I'm experiencing that I accessed a portal to the transcendental knowledge. And when I first read the Bhagavad Gita, I was amazed. Like, this feels like absolute truth. And I remember when I was 19, I remember talking to a friend, and I said, I don't care what the truth is. I'll believe anything. If it's like, I don't care what the truth is, but I want to be aligned with it. So this is something that I had clarity about. Like, I don't care what the truth, like I'm willing to entertain things that I don't want to entertain, like even a truth inside of me, or a truth about reality, or that, that God could be Krishna. Like, who am I to say? Like, I'm going to be open-minded, especially when someone as intelligent as Srila Prabhupada is talking all about Krishna and like the whole philosophy is making sense. Well, like, if all the whole philosophy is making sense and like amazing, devotional service is amazing. Like, it like clarified and solved my problems. Like, yeah, loving our source, being devoted to the truth. And if that truth and that source has personhood, that sounds really beautiful. Like, I would like that more than just a nebulous ball of energy or light. That's all the concept that I had. And when I approached Krishna consciousness, it was magical how I like somehow transferred from like, it makes more sense that there's personhood than the absolute truth, or like the source is a ball of nebulous, like just a energy or light, like that was sort of a concept, the only concept that I had. I mean, I knew about God, the concept of God, but I never really like believed in it, or I tried to, but it just wasn't very deep earlier in my life. But so I don't know if there's something I was about to say and you really want to hear it, let me know, because I don't remember where I was going. But but I'll go back to some of my notes. Actually, Srila Prabhupada says that satisfaction of the self-realized spiritual master is the secret of advancement in spiritual life. And inquiries and submission constitute the proper combination of spiritual understanding. So being in a spirit of genuine, curiosity, being a spirit of discovery, inquiring, continuing to inquire, being, just being like genuinely curious and interested, and then submissive. You're wondering who's here? Same people, Kim, Jonathan, honestly. Actually, so yes, everybody's here still with me. Thank you. So submissive. That's interesting. That's not very politically correct. Like, being submissive sounds like something that an animal does, or someone who doesn't think good about themselves or have self-worth. They're just like, they're not being assertive. They're being submissive sounds bad. And I don't think Srila Prabhupada is saying to, actually in this purport, he says, I'm pretty sure he said something about blind following not being. Anyway, if it's not right here, then in other places, I don't think it's in this purport, but I was reading it today. Prabhupada doesn't encourage blind following or just doing things because you think you're supposed to, and you're just ignoring your questions or ignoring your doubts, or, this is not what he promotes. And it's in the authoritative knowledge that this is not the way to approach. So submissive, I think it just means being in a service attitude, and that this is like it's a secret to success in spiritual life and for spiritual understanding, is being in a servant mood and attitude. And that's really nice. Like, that's, the teacher is satisfied when the students wants to help, it's like, and wanting to like give energy back. Like, so if we make an effort, if we're learning and gaining so much from Srila Prabhupada about everything that really matters in life, then it makes sense to like find a service. There's many ways that we can serve, but find a way to give back to him. And right now I'm feeling like I owe Srila Prabhupada extra, because I feel that I like avoided spiritual life and had resistance, and I mean, what to speak of like before age 34, when I came in contact with Srila Prabhupada and kind of bumbling around for 6 years. But then I experienced this initiation ceremony, and I had like kind of like the lowest year in Krishna consciousness. So I don't know, it's just been 7 years, but I had like a low, and I feel like I lost some rounds, and I lost some time and energy I could have given to Srila Prabhupada, and I feel regret and some pain. But I can just pick up from here, and I'm not going to dwell on that. But I have right now, and thanks to different healers and coaches along the way, and circumstances that Krishna put me in 2 months ago. I had a severe health crisis. It was very severe, and I could have died from that, but I didn't. It was a mild situation. It was milder, but still serious. And there's long-term concerns I need to take care of my health and my well-being. And that's not just the body, that's the soul. So what is the well-being for my soul? I do think it's serving Srila Prabhupada enthusiastically. And I was really feeling like extra depressed after the health situation. Like, initially I was really Krishna conscious and for weeks, and then mixed with anxiety and other emotions, but I was really Krishna conscious with my attention and my energy and focus. And after symptoms all like subsided, I felt like really low and depressed. And then I came to a program and I inquired to come to a Bhakti yoga retreat, and Mother Malini gave me a lot of support. It wasn't like mind-blowing. It was just 4 days away from all my responsibilities and filled with Krishna consciousness. And I needed to break. And I feel completely transformed. And like, I just want to search Srila Prabhupada. What's next? Like, what am I going to do next? My dream, like writing notes down. I'm like, I have a lot of energy and this is kind of how I usually was for like 6 years before 2021 and after initiation, I had a lot of energy, enthusiasm, and like ready, yes, and ready, and ideas. And like, sometimes it was too much, like, and energy for Krishna consciousness and community building and going out on to share the holy names and sing in public and share his Krishna conscious books and host programs. And I had like a lot of energy. And so I feel like I'm returned back to myself, and I'm like praying to not lose this enthusiasm. I really don't want to go back to feeling depressed and escaping through snacking and scrolling on the internet or whatever. I mean, that's the worst of it but that's pretty bad. When it's too many hours and too much food, then it's sickening and not good. It's not good for Krishna consciousness. So anyway, checking the time, it's 7:17. So I will come to a close, but see, there's something really important in my notes that needed to be expressed. But we talked about faith, intelligence, knowledge, being resolute and purpose. What does a spiritual master have to say? We talked about a lot of things, association. I'm going to be at more programs. If you don't see me there, then you can be like, you said you'd be at programs, so where are you? Because that really, association gives me the faith, and then that faith and association gives me inspiration, and it gives me interest, and it gives me curiosity, and it gives me like, it puts me on my path. It like puts me on the path, like executing devotional service, and I'm happy. I'm much more happier in Krishna consciousness than that. I learned that, and I'm happy for how 2021 went. And I could tell you more of those details, but I'm happy how it went because it gives me like even more of a taste for Krishna consciousness. Like, I don't want to go spiraling downward into the way that I was conditioned in my childhood and by American, what do you want to eat and what do you want to watch and what do you want to eat? I feel like that's my conditioning, to be honest. That like, when they're like, oh, I could watch this while I'm eating that, like, it's just like, that's not nourishing for my spirit. I did get to a lot of it. Oh, okay. I really want to share. This is related, and I'll close on this sharing of a little something else from Srila Prabhupada. This is about watering. So in the purport, he says that as water on the root of a tree is automatically distributed to the leaves and branches, in Krishna consciousness, one can render the highest service to everyone, namely self, family, society, country, humanity. And if Krishna is satisfied by one's actions, then everyone will be satisfied. So that's like an analogy of like watering the root of a tree to take care of all of the individual branches. And that's okay, I just want to mention the sentence before. The resolute purpose of a person in Krishna consciousness is based on knowledge by which one comes to know perfectly that Krishna is the root of all manifested causes. So we ourselves are not the cause of things that happen. Like, we can sometimes think of ourselves as like, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm getting results, and it's up to me, and I made that happen, and look at how I manifested that. Look at I'm a master manifester. And that is a concept that I had before Krishna consciousness, and I wasn't that into it, but I just manifested things. I just manifested things, and I took credit for it. But it's so much more satisfying to be grateful to someone else for just to be grateful for what is manifested, instead of like, I'm the cause or I'm the reason or I'm God, like, oh, look at me, I'm so amazing. Like, well, I mean, Krishna could interfere with any of those things that were amazing that happened if he wanted to. And so it's not really me, it's amazing, although the soul is amazing. But anyway, okay, so this is what I wanted to say, that's over here in my notes, is about watering the seed of bhakti. So Krishna, so the spiritual master, like, by the instruction of such a spiritual master, one gets the seed of bhakti. And it says that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu suggests watering the seed of bhakti with hearing and chanting the holy names. And this is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, Text 30. And there's a really beautiful poetic description of what happens to the seed of bhakti when it's watered and taken care of, and how it grows, and where it reaches to, and it's just like this really beautiful. And it's a little long, so I won't read all of it, because the second part of the purport is what I want to speak about. So, but at the end of that beautiful description of the bhakti plant, Prabhupada is saying here in the purport, the ripe fruits of love of God are relished only by the devotees constantly engaged in the watering process as described above. But the working devotee must always be mindful so that the creeper which has grown will not be cut off. Therefore, he should be mindful of the following considerations. Okay, so he listed a few considerations, but I'm just going to read a few of them. So this is something for us to be careful of.
What is this from?
This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, Text 30. It so happens that by the watering process, okay, so be careful of these considerations. If it so happens that by the watering process, never mind. I'm not, let me just say this, however it comes out, we'll get to the point. It so happens that by the watering process, some weeds are also grown. And unless such weeds are uprooted, the nurturing of the main creeper, of bhakti yoga, may be hampered. Actually, these weeds are material enjoyment, merging of, okay, hold on. This is a list of a few types of weeds. Actually, these weeds are material enjoyment, merging of the self and the absolute without separate individuality, and many other desires in the field of religion, economic development, sense enjoyment, and emancipation. There are many other weeds like disobedience to the tenets of the revered scriptures, unnecessary engagements, killing animals and hankering after material gain, prestige, and adoration. If sufficient care is not taken, then the watering process may only help to breed the weeds, stunting the healthy growth of the main creeper and resulting in no fructification of the ultimate requirement, love of God. The devotee must therefore be very careful to uproot the different weeds in the very beginning. Only then will the healthy growth of the main creeper not be stunted. And by so doing, the devotee is able to relish the fruit of love of God, and thus live practically with Lord Krishna, even in this life, and be able to see the Lord in every step. The highest perfection of life is to enjoy life constantly in the association of the Lord. And one who can relish this does not aspire after any temporary enjoyment of the material world via other media. I like that he said media, because I'm like, who can relate to that? Associating with some other media. So anyway, I love how Prabhupada expresses himself really, really clearly, and like kind of disentangles things and paints pictures, and it's just really beautiful. And I have direct experience with letting other weeds not be pulled out, especially in this past year and other time. And I have all kinds of weeds, but but if we take care of them and pull them out, then they won't like get in the way. Because if we like, I mean, I think it should be like, I'm imagining like with this garden in the heart, that the weeding process needs to be maintained all the time. And so we ideally we need to be careful and firm and fixed, and you know, what does it say in here? Something about firm and fixed and okay, it says to be well versed in Krishna consciousness, one has to act firmly and obey the representative of Krishna, and one should accept the instructions of the bona fide spiritual master as one's mission in life. So I feel like I learned it the hard way, and I suggest that all of you take care of the weeds in your heart and attach yourself to the spiritual master and become resolute in purpose. I would like to do that. You can join me. It's new for me to be resolute in purpose, but I really don't like the other way, being many branched and irresolute and trying things out and like, you know, just not, I want to be stronger. And so I hope that you'll give me your association to help me become stronger, and maybe I could support you too. Hare Krishna. The verse is, those who are on this path are resolute in purpose and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many branched. Thank you. And if there's any questions or comments, I would really love to hear from you.
I really enjoyed your class. You don't have to turn it.
Okay.
You need to speak louder.
I really enjoyed your class. I don't know what else I have to say about it right now, but I felt your excitement and your newly found like determination to continue in your process of bhakti, and I feel inspired and curious about like I feel like, well, how am I watering the seed of bhakti? I'm not quite sure I'm in here, but I still just like, I don't know. Yeah, so I'm taking some things from that I can't express, but
It's a question.
yeah, I appreciated your class very much, and I liked how you brought in verses and kind of tied lots of things together, and I was very engaged. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing. And I appreciate hearing how you have inspiration with a question about your own self and you're on your path and watering your bhakti plant.
And I was curious, you did mention, you said there's an illustration. I thought you said the Charamita, what's that book called? Sorry.
Chaitanya Chaitanya.
Yeah. I thought you quoted that there was something from that book. The tree. Oh, that was what I was asking, which book that was, if you knew.
I don't think the tree was that book, but I did quote from that. But the part that it's just Bhagavad. No, it's not. It's Srimad Bhagavad. I can tell you after the verse,
but there was
where there's like just a description, this paragraph about the bhakti seed.
Yeah, and then
it's in the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I like it. Thank you. Thank you, Laura. Hare Krishna. How's everybody online? Thank you for being with me.
I appreciated your class, Damayanti Prabhu, and the different places you went. And you all, like practically every time you made a point of surrender or a point of about the process of weed, and like you have come back again and again to the same point of the spiritual master. Like throughout your class, it was a theme of the spiritual master, like to follow the instruction of the spiritual master, and then you ended up with like giving our life and to the mission of the spiritual master, and serving the spiritual master, and feeling the debt to the spiritual master, and being under the shelter of the spiritual master, knowing who is the spiritual master, and knowing how the spiritual master is helping us begin the process, and so I appreciated that regardless where you went in your class, that aspect, you know, and that aspect is essential. Without the aspect of the spiritual master, we cannot know Krishna or even chant Hare Krishna without the mercy of the spiritual master. He's the one who planted the seed of that Bhakti creeper. And so I appreciate it, you know, very much how you build up your class, and in that you weaved everywhere our relationship with the spiritual master. Thank you.
I appreciate that reflection. I didn't obviously exactly plan that, but I mean, it was a part of the purport and also my life. So
Yeah. You weaved it everywhere, and maybe not consciously, but even better, that's not consciously.
Yeah, it is central, isn't it, to have guidance. At least if we're talking about serving someone, if we're talking about like God as a person, then, well, who is God and what is he like and not like? And there's, you know, we need that information, and that's how we'll know how to serve, is through, I mean, if the process wasn't about devotional service, I don't know if you need a spiritual master, I don't know, but if it's devotional service, you need to know about the person you're serving. So yeah.
Yeah, and the spiritual master is the Vaya Media, because he's the pure devotee of the Lord. And so he have one foot with us in the material world, and one foot always in the spiritual world. And he can kind of do the Vaya Media and accept the transition. On our own, there is no way from where we are entangled in our condition in the material world that we can go to transcendence of Krishna. We need someone in the middle who kind of push us along. Yeah.
I
have a question, but it might not be related, so I can also ask you another time. It's just coming up right now because of you. This comment about spiritual master, and I'm looking at the pictures, and I'm like, wait, so Prabhupada's masters over there, or the lineage, how did they study? Or how did they know the Gita text? If Prabhupada was the one that made these texts in English, were there other? I mean, maybe that's a question for another person, or like another situation.
That's a
question. Every
just like,
question is good question.
Because I'm just like thinking of that. So before that, I was like, oh, I'm like a little sad that he's not alive. Of course, like the whole like thing of like, yeah, like wanting, right, like wanting a spiritual master that's alive, and like, and part of me resonates like with that, but I also, I'm not attached to that, and I get the power of and I'm enjoying Prabhupada and other people's love for him, and still understanding like, yeah, that the importance of like him and Krishna, and I'm new to that, but yeah, back to my question. So I was just thinking of that. I was like, okay, yeah, so it's like kind of off subject. I'm just curious.
I think it's relevant. We're talking about the spiritual master.
Yeah.
Shall I try to respond for a moment?
Yes, for sure.
Let me see what I say.
Yes.
I'm going to speak. Well, I appreciate your question. So each of the spiritual masters did have access in this line to transcendental knowledge, maybe through already having it, or also they had teachers and literatures that they're reading from. I don't know, I can't speak for all of them, but they did have access to literatures from previous teachers in this line. And at least I can say on the 4 there. I don't know how far back written text, I don't know, but so, and then they had access to literatures, and they also had access to Krishna, and so they may have all of it like memorized. I don't really know, but they did have access to, and Srila Prabhupada's, he's translating those ancient texts. The Vedas, I don't even know, I can't tell you the history of them, but he translated them into English with the devotional, from the perspective of a pure devotee of Krishna. But he got all of his literatures from other people, and then he wrote the purports for us in this age and for the Western culture, so, or not just Western, Indian, everyone. So
it's like the translation itself is also very pure, but then the purport is also the translation for us in this age, and also pure in the way that he does that from the Sanskrit that was either verbally or already written down in other books, or whoever it came from directly or something.
Yeah, and maybe Mother Malini can expand on that, but I do want to just say that Srila Prabhupada isn't dead. You were saying you're wanting a spiritual master who's alive, and he is alive.
Right.
And it may be, I don't know like what your experience is or will be, but I experience him as like alive and teaching me and guiding me. Like every time I read, it's like speaking to me, and it's like, oh, just what I needed to hear. And it's always like serendipitous and kind of magical. So I feel his presence in the teachings, in the teachings. And I'm not like the most amazing devotee, but you can connect to his picture, his murti, and his teachings, and the audio in a way where I feel his presence.
Yeah, I really appreciate that actually, because it's just like, someone leaves this world, or a loved one of ours leaves their body. It's like they're kept alive when you think of them, and you have pictures of them, and you honor them, and you remember stories about them. I never think of my grandparents, and like, forget them or something kind of essence. So I do appreciate that, and having my own experience, like just living in an ashram for a little bit, and there was like a guru there, but I felt no connection to that person. But like, I also like, it doesn't matter. Like, just that, it's like that. Like it doesn't. It can. Like you can have a more profound experience with someone, indirectly than even if you're directly, like that can be indirect. We're not as powerful. So I'm just drawing on those things to remind me.
Yeah, you're open-minded about feeling like a deep connection. It's possible to feel a really deep and profound connection with someone who's not present.
Yes.
And
not just in mind, but like really remember
physically.
Your response just reminded me of the power of that it's not dependent
on physical presence. Yeah.
Energy, spiritual energy.
The spiritual process isn't dependent on that physical association, even though it is really nice. It is really nice to have physical association, but it's not absolutely necessary to have a spiritual transformation and realization happen with. So, and not that you were asking that, but it's just a comment that, and for me, like I never had Prabhupada there, but I never really expected it. I guess I kind of relate to him to like Jesus, like, they're not here physically, but they're there.
That's a good example, Jesus is a pure devotee, representative of God. And he has millions of disciples and new disciples every day. And they feel complete in their relationship with Jesus, because a bona fide spiritual master never dies. And in fact, like in a sense, those towards living spiritual master is kind of a contradiction, because that will mean that there is such a thing as a dead spiritual master, but that's not. A bona fide representative of God never dies, and he lives through his teaching, he lives through his presence, and he lives through his legacy, and he lives through direct presence. And I encourage you while you are here. I know the deities of Srila Prabhupada, you have a lot of special Shakti and power, and encourage you to speak with him and pray to him and develop a relationship with his Murti and see what's happened, asking questions, praying, inquiring, and receiving, hearing. So, like Damayanti was saying, transcendental knowledge, spiritual knowledge. Not be dependent on anything material, any other. So physical presence will be tend to be seen or tend to come from a place of our material desire or material view of the world. But let's say, even if Srila Prabhupada right now was in India, let's say it was in India. So in India right now, it's pitch dark, it's the middle of the night. We'll still be here in Alachua, and maybe because of COVID or whatever, we never visit India. And so what we will have is video of Srila Prabhupada and tapes of video of Srila Prabhupada and his books, and we will associate with Srila Prabhupada every day, isn't it? So it will be in another continent. And so Srila Prabhupada, in fact, he says that his caravan, his pastime are also eternal. And so he's not on another continent, he's on another universe, like continuing this mission of giving Krishna to the world. So he's in another continent, and we are in this continent. It's another universe. We are in this universe. What's the difference? Yeah, like that. Or it could be even next door, and we are here, like that. So Srila Prabhupada is really present in his teaching, is really present in his Murti. And then about the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita, as we, like when we read the Bhagavad Gita, we see or the Bhagavad Gita was compiled as part of the Maha 5,000 years ago by Srila Vyasadeva. And so the Bhagavad Gita is given to the sun god, and then it was lost, and that's why Krishna speak it again to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And after that was done, spoken on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, then Srila Vyasadeva, he compiled, the Mahabharata, and it compiles the Bhagavad Gita, and then through a chain of disciplic succession going back all the way to Lord Brahma and Vyasadeva and Narada Muni, we receive the Bhagavad Gita. So the Bhagavad Gita and the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita is handing down from one teacher to the next. So Srila Prabhupada received it from Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, the full knowledge, transcendental knowledge. And again, the Bhagavad Gita is not a book. It's knowledge, it's transformation. It resonates with the chit potency that is us. That chit, we have knowledge inside our heart, and the knowledge we receive from the spiritual master kind of gets its resonance inside the knowledge that's inside our heart to bring it to the surface, because it's like been covered by ignorance. But for the disciplic succession, all those teachers, they are not covered by ignorance ever. They are eternal associate of the Lord, eternally liberated. And still, like they receive the knowledge according to place, time, and circumstance. So you have Jagannath Das Babaji, who gave it to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who gave it to Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji, who gave it to Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, who gave it to Srila Prabhupada. And the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita is eternal. There's no beginning to transcendental knowledge, or there is no end. And the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, the knowledge of Bhakti Yoga, and the knowledge of devotional service, the knowledge of how I will awaken my natural dormant love of God is a knowledge that doesn't have a beginning and an end. It's an eternal knowledge that is there. If that's response to your question. Yeah. So, of course, in the purport that Damayanti just read and discussed, like the spiritual master is expert to give the medicine in the right way. So if you see them as a disciplic succession of doctors, and doctor maybe Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, the first one. Well, he didn't need to deal with pollution. He's a doctor that there was no cars, there was no dioxide in the air. The water was really pure. The vegetables were big and full and juicy, and the fruit were everywhere. So that doctor, he had a certain medicine to give to the people to heal them. But that medicine will not work for us anymore. So we have a different doctor, is Srila Prabhupada, who understand that the air is polluted, the vegetable, in an analogy, and that they are drinking water that's completely have no purity and no enzyme and lost all the minerals and all that. So it's giving us a medicine that's very aligned with our circumstance and with where we are at. So that medicine, that spiritual medicine, is given with expertise by the spiritual master to his understanding of his student. And the student is us, the people of Kali Yoga, the people of 2022. And he has that expertise. And is that expertise as an instrument of Krishna. Srila Prabhupada will say, I didn't write those books. Krishna did. And that's why sometimes you will read his book and feel so much pleasure. Not because he has an ego of reading his book, because really, truly, he was such a Vyamedia and an instrument of Krishna that Krishna wrote those purports. He said those purports are my ecstasy. So they are fully transcendental and 100% from the spiritual world. There's so much.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Let me see the chat. Jonathan says, enjoyed your class. Thank you for sharing yourself and your process. And Mother Anasui says, Hare Krishna Damayanti, thank you for class and your vulnerable sharing. Wishing you well in your Krishna consciousness path. That's very nice. Is there any other comments or questions? What time it is? It's 7:47. Anything else?
Very, very, very stimulating and entertaining all at the same time. Spiritual and knowledge.
Thank you. Yay. Okay, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Thanks, Damayanti. Hare Krishna. Nice class. Thank you.
Thank you for being with me.